Hi there, who do we have on the line at 526-9267?
So Rick Orphan from Fort Carson.
Great, thanks, Rick.
Okay, hello everyone. Happy Thursday. I say we get this party started. Jessica, looks like you're probably pretty much caught up on roster.
Give me 1 second. Who do we have on the line at 248-0378?
This is Matthew Pettit with CDOT Local Agency.
Perfect, Matthew. Okay. Looks like we're good for our quorum. We have plenty online. Did you want me to run through a roll call, or do you want to just go for it?
No, I think it's probably appropriate to show that we've done that.
Sure, we can do that. Give me 1 sec. Let me catch up a couple people on here as they're rolling in. Can see a few more people joining us on the line here.
While Jessica's doing that, I'd like to introduce Josh. Josh Palmer is our new Deputy County Engineer for El Paso County. So I'd like to have him say a couple words about himself, and I hope that you all welcome him to our group.
Hi, Josh.
I'm going to introduce you. Okay, apparently Josh is being shy and doesn't want to say anything about himself, but he used to be our engineering manager, and he's been promoted since then. So again, Josh, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Sorry about that. Something happened to my computer and it keeps shutting down, so I'm back. So I missed it. What?
Do you want to tell the group a little bit about yourself? Just a couple lines.
Oh, yeah, sure. So like Victoria mentioned, I came to the county in December as the capital engineering supervisor, and I was the recipient of some fortunate luck on my part, and the position as the assistant county engineer opened up, and I threw my hat in the ring for that. I came over from CDOT. I was up at CDOT headquarters for about 2.5 years. I was the guardrail engineer up there. And before that, I spent 15 years or so on the consulting side of things. So I have a little bit of experience just about everything.
Awesome.
Thank you, Josh.
Welcome, Josh. We have another new face online too. Oh, sorry, Gail. Talk to me.
Yes, I would like to introduce, Megan Harrington. She's our new planning director for the town of Monument.
Afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, Megan.
Okay, Megan, you got to give us your 30-second bio.
Hi. Oh, my 30-second bio. Boy, some of you are going to think this is a real snooze. But this is day 4 at the town of Monument. I spent 13 years with the city of Colorado Springs, the last 6 as the assistant planning director for Colorado Springs Planning and Community Development. So a lot of familiar faces and names here that I'm still working with you, just in a different capacity. So thank you.
Great. Welcome.
All right. So with that, would you like your roll call now?
Sure, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. All right. So I'm just going to go down the line and name off everybody by first name that I see. And then if I have missed you, just give me a shout at the end. That way it's recorded in the minutes. All right. Okay. So for CDOT, see Wendy online, Matt, Tim for Colorado Springs, and Gail. Let's see Josh and Victoria, Rick Orphan, Fort Carson, Brandy out of Fountain, Karen and Dole, Debbie and Megan. For PPACG, John Leosatos is on the line, as well as other staff, Catherine, Will, Mark are all here. Let's see, Amy Kelly out of USAFA, Sally Riley. Is there any members that I missed? I see Aaron Busto joined us as well.
This is Jason under Dosh. I don't know if you got me from Palmer Lake there or not.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. With that, you definitely have your quorum, and I would say you're good to go. Everybody, just a quick reminder to state your name when you make a motion, and if you are not speaking, if you'll just mute yourself. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. All right, so let's get on with things. I hope everyone had a chance to review the agenda, and I welcome a motion on the floor to get the agenda approved.
This is Tim Roberts. I move approval of the agenda.
Do we have a second?
This is Sally Riley. I'll second.
Thank you, Sally. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, agenda's approved. Thank you. Let's move on to public comments. Are there any announcements or comments that need to be made that are not on the agenda? Okay, I know that I have one and I can't remember it right now, so probably in about 10 minutes it'll come back to me and I'll bring it back up again. Okay, hope everyone's had a chance to review the minutes from May 20th. Thank you again for preparing these, Jessica. A lot was covered. We need to approve the meeting minutes. So once again, I welcome a motion to get the meeting minutes approved.
Gail Sturdivant, so moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Sally Riley, second.
Thank you, Sally. We have a motion. We have a second. Let's go to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, again, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. And I had to read Victoria's lips because she's muted, but. Okay, John, Board of Directors report, please, sir.
So the Board of Directors met this morning, and I had to leave to go do a walkthrough on my new house. So I didn't catch everything. So Catherine, you might need to jump in and help out, or anybody else that happened to be on the call. But I was there for the first item, the 22-23 UPWP adoption, and they did approve that. The other items on the agenda was tip amendment number 12 and the safety target setting items. So Catherine, did they approve both of those?
Yes, they did.
So we're good there. And then under information items, they did have a discussion, or at least they were supposed to have a discussion before I left. Mark was going to give an update on the trip report, kind of talking about the national trip organization. They do a report for the cost of congestion, the cost of poor roads for every state. And back in March, they released the Colorado report. And because there's been so many things on the agenda lately, now is the first opportunity Mark actually had to go ahead and give them a summary of that. At least I hope Mark actually got on this time. He got bumped like 3 months in a row. So Catherine, let me know if he didn't get a chance to do his presentation, but he was supposed to give that presentation today. And then there was a legislative update where we talked, I'm sure there was a lively discussion about all things that happened at the state, especially with greenhouse gases and the alike. Happy to have Catherine answer any questions that anyone might have. Otherwise, that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
We did. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Okay, Catherine, the fiscal year 21-24 tip amendment number 13.
All right. Thanks, Dole. All right, so this is for amendment number 13 to our current tip that is presently adopted, not to be confused with the two other ones we're working on. All right, so this one is for three change requests. One from Colorado Springs MMT to add state SB 267 funds in $1.5 million to their downtown transit center. This is a project that's already currently in our tip, but they want to add it, these additional funds that they were awarded or allocated. This will also, or actually, just as a note, this is amending the current tip, but once the 22 through 25 TIP is adopted or planned to be adopted in August, we'll also be adding these and updating these changes in that once that occurs. So you're essentially amending this TIP and the next TIP. So just for clarification there. And then back to the projects. The next two items are add new projects from CDOT for the SB 267 funds. These are this transit portion of those for the Monument Park and Ride and the Woodman Road Mobility Hub. These are 267 funds, and these are all costs that go into fiscal year 2022. And with that, I can take any questions.
I just had a real quick question about the one in Monument. Are they just going to be making improvements up there? I was on the project team that built that park and ride back in whatever, early 2000s. So I'm just curious what that's actually going to do.
I believe it is just updates. They're not redoing it or anything, but I'm not certain. Actually, I'd have to see if it says more about that in their letter, but I can get back to you on that.
I'm just out of curiosity, that's all.
Sure, but I'll follow up. I'll make sure we get a hold of that.
Okay, no more questions for Catherine on that one. Catherine, the functional classification change request, which is near and dear to my heart.
Yes, I'm sure you're hoping for an approval. All right, so this one.
I'm sorry, do we need to make a motion? I skipped over too quickly, Catherine. Can you let
That's true, we do need that, yes.
This is an action item, I apologize. We need to have a motion to get this amendment number 13 approved.
This is Sally Riley, and I will recommend the Board of Directors approve Amendment 13 to the funding year 21 to 24.
Thank you, Sally. Do we have a second?
Gail Sturdivant, I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other final comments about this? Okay, all those in favor of approving it as Sally stated, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. This time Victoria unmuted herself. Okay, motion passes, thank you. All right, now Catherine, please.
All right. Okay, so you've seen this kind of request from Monument before, and so that we're moving into another request from Manitou Springs for updating the functional classification system in our area. Just for some that might have not been here before, we are doing a full review of the entire MPO area of the functional classification system. So to make any updates based on new data and the regional growth over the last about 12 years since we've done a full review, which is under our understanding. We're not sure the exact date the last one happened, but it's been a while. So we are doing a full update. Functional classification of roads and highways kind of creates a hierarchy of the roadways to properly channel transportation movements. This is something that is federally, it's through Federal Highway. They maintain the system. They are, and make final approval, but we as an MPO take these requests from our board, or we do this analysis or updates through our board and committees, and then we submit those to CDOT, and then CDOT reviews, make sure that they meet the requirements and the guidelines set out by Federal Highway. Once they approve that, then they send it off to Federal Highway for their final decision and inclusion into the federal functional classification system, whether that be additions or just changes to the classification. So this is kind of the first step, taking it through the MPO process and making those updates. Will, our GIS and modeling lead, has done a lot of great data analysis and is working with our local jurisdictions to identify changes based on the new data and the growth that we've seen. And recently he's worked with Manitou Springs on this, and we did Monument a couple months ago. And so based on that analysis, and then also the review from Manitou, there are 5 roadway segments that are going from a federal class back to a local road. There are 7 local roads are being added to the federally classified system. So they're going from local to classified. And then 15 are staying classified, but are updating their class to more accurately reflect their function based on that data. And more details on which roadways those are in the attachment. And just also as a note, which I should have mentioned before, a big reason or a big purpose of these classification systems or maintaining their accuracy is that they also allow for federal funding eligibility. So to be eligible for our STB Metro and our TAP funds and some other grants that may come through us, you have to be on federally classified roadways, mostly. Not all the time, there are occasions not, but most of the time to be eligible, you have to be functionally classified. So that's an important piece to note. So with that, I can take any questions. Otherwise, we're requesting your recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Catherine. So once again, for what it's worth, Catherine, this was a terrific process for us. Will, I know he's on the call, but really just kind of did everything. And it wasn't always based on volumes. It was based on connectivity. It was based on, I mean, there's a lot of variables that went into this. And so like every other municipality at PPACG, we've, Manitou has grown and increased traffic. So to allow some of these roads to now be federally classified and qualify for federal funds, it's a big win for us. So thank you to PPACG for doing this. Okay, we have an action item. We need a motion to approve this.
Victoria, I'll move approval. And I'll apologize to Will for sending him our requested changes as well. And they're many and long, so sorry, Will.
I'll second the motion except for the apology.
We have a motion, an apology, and a second. So I'll say that correctly. We have a motion. We have a second. Any other discussion on this item?
Okay. Hey, this is Aaron Busto. Can I chime in for a second?
Oh, sure.
Aaron Busto with Federal Highways. So the page we're looking at right now here, the bottom of page 13, I do want to be clear that local is a functional classification. It's the bottom one, but it is a functional classification. So a road won't be going from a federal class to a local. It will just be downgraded on that spectrum. Same as being added to the federal classification system. So the functional classification system contains all public roads. So unless it's a private road becoming public, I think just the language being used here can specify that it's changing class or going up and down on this spectrum. But yeah, so I wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, that is helpful because I did misunderstand. I thought it had to be at least a minor collector to be federally eligible.
That is true, but that does not mean that local roads aren't part of the classification system.
Oh, okay, right. Well, sure. Our interest was becoming federally eligible.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Does this warrant a motion amendment? An amendment to the motion?
I don't think so. Victoria said that she made a motion as presented, and I think Aaron was just helping clarify some of our thought process, but it's clear in the documentation what we're trying to approve.
Okay.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we had some discussion, and then let's vote. All those in favor of approving this action item, say aye.
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 And then anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Dole, this is Sally. If I may ask a question before you move on to the next item.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how many other folks are coming forward and when for their adoption of their classifications. I had an email conversation with Catherine yesterday, and she proposed of various timelines. I just don't want to inundate the staff. So I was thinking that Woodland Park would move forward with their request for our classification changes in the August meeting. So I just wondered if Fountain or Colorado Springs or El Paso County or others are coming forward. Again, I don't want to inundate the staff.
I guess I can start. This is Tim Roberts. As far as a functional class update, the city is taking on a major update to our master transportation plan, and that includes an update to our major thoroughfare plan, and that's where we define our roadway classifications, at least our major roadway classifications. Our locals, we're not going to be touching those, so I don't think we'll be having TPACG assist us with this. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And this is Victoria. And as I just apologized for, I did bring a lot of them to Will. And so at some point, and Sally, I've already inundated him. So it's good that you're waiting a little while. But there are, geez, I didn't even count them, but there are a lot of them that we are considering changing based on both CDOT classifications as well as our major transportation corridor plan. And I would guess that Will is going to need a bit of time before you see them come forward to the committee.
Okay. Brandy?
I'll go after you, Sally.
Well, I'm just wondering, and I guess I would ask John and Catherine, would it work for Woodland Park to bring theirs forward for the August meeting and have a letter to you by August 10th?
Will, do you want to? I think Will's kind of been part of that with Catherine, so I think they've got it sort of spaced out.
Yeah, Woodland Park is pretty well set.
I know Will's probably good on his data analysis side. So unless you have a lot of changes to the list that he provided, Sally, then all we need from you is the letter, and then I can pull that information from Will in the letter together, and we'll be ready for the board. So it won't be much work at all to move forward with you. So it'll be not a problem.
Okay, we'll plan on the August then, and thank you for indulging me in this.
And Dole, if I could just add one thing, and basically it's to Tim Roberts and City of Colorado Springs. So Tim, I think we're on the same page, but I just want to make sure it's clear, because sometimes I say things and I just confuse the issue. I don't make things better. I try, but I don't always succeed. But just to be clear, Colorado Springs has their own functional classification. That's great, but you cannot, as a individual jurisdiction, unilaterally make yourself a principal arterial or whatever. You might have it in your plan that way, but unless it shows in the official functional classification maps that I think are kept by CDOT, but approved by FHWA, your classification doesn't matter when it comes to being federally aid eligible. You have to be on those maps. So while you're going through this exercise, if what you're saying is after you go through your own exercise, you'll take those roadways that you want to upgrade and then bring
them to you. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was rather brief on that. You currently in at least 3 versions of reviewing the network, we have been in sync. This will be an update to that network, and the process, if it continues as prior, we'd update our thoroughfare network, and then we bring it to you guys and we reconcile any differences.
Great, and then we'll take any of those differences that need to be put onto the official map. Well, you guys will give us a letter and we'll take it through the process to CDOT and others. So I think I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good discussion. And Sally, honestly, if it was me, I would shoot for the July meeting because I think in August, I could see some of these other bigger agencies bring in more of their stuff to the board. So we wanted to get ours in first, so because it was easy and straightforward, and that also would free us up then to maybe affect our upcoming TIP amendments also.
Okay, thanks for that advice. I'm glad you were the guinea pig.
Okay, and then our final action item, the 2045 Transportation Amendment, Schedule and Revised Financial Plan Estimates. I think Mark is going to present on this one.
Thanks, Dole. Good afternoon, Mark Northrup, Senior Transportation Planner at PPACG. So today I'm seeking your approval of the draft amendment schedule, as well as the revised financial plan estimates for the amended 2045 RTP. Before I get into the schedule and the estimates, I want to provide you with some background on the plan amendment. So the Pikes Peak Region's RTP, the Moving Forward 2045 Pikes Peak Area Regional Transportation Plan, was adopted by the PPACG board in January of 2020. In March of 2021, PPACG was contacted by the city of Colorado Springs regarding a project they wanted to develop. It was determined that the project would require an amendment to the RTP. So with the need to amend the plan, PPACG staff issued a call for amendments in April. And while PPACG was receiving amendment proposals, staff developed the draft amendment schedule and re-examined the financial plan, developing revised financial estimates for the amended 2045 RTP. So with that, I'm going to move on to the proposed schedule. Jessica, can you scroll down? There we go. Thank you. So as noted previously, the call for amendments was issued in April. An amendment workshop was held in early June where we discussed the project and text proposals, the amendment schedule, as well as the revised revenue estimates. So today you'll be taking action on the schedule and revenue estimates. Looking ahead, staff will be providing the amendment document to the TAC, CAC, and board as information in July and August. Excuse me. And the document will be released for public comment at the PPACG board meeting in August. The public comment period will lead up to a public hearing on September 9th. And the TAC and CAC will take action on the amendment in September, with board taking action on October 13th. So with that, does anyone have any questions about the schedule? Okay. So if not, I'll move on to the revised revenue estimates. Jessica, can you scroll down to the table there for me, please? Thanks. So starting in the spring, PPACG staff reviewed up-to-date financial planning documents, including the Pikes Peak Rural Transit Authority, or PPRTA estimates, as well as CDOT's 2045 program distribution document. And using these, developed revised financial estimates. These estimates would help determine if adjustments needed to be made to the existing projects in the plan to accommodate the project request by Colorado Springs. So the table you see shows the revised financial plan estimates based off of the estimates for the adopted 2045 plan. As you can see, there was a sizable amendment adjustment with increases in local, state, and federal funds. So I'm going to briefly explain how each fund source was calculated. So a local estimate is based on unexpected increase in internet sales revenue generated during the life of the plan. Revised PPRTA estimates show a likely increase of 10% over the life of the plan. So this equates to 240 million additional to capital, 140 million additional to maintenance and operations, and 40 million additional to transit. So combining capital and transit, you have approximately 260 million in additional local funds. The state revised estimate is based on CDOT's 2045 program distribution document. The adopted 2045 plan reasonably expected state funding pool and an adjustment for inflation. To calculate the additional state funds, the adopted 2045 plan state funding pool of 305.4 million was subtracted from CDOT's program distribution total of 668.5 million. So this resulted in an initial revenue estimate of $363.1 million. With the adjustment for inflation of 50%, the state increase comes to $181.5 million. In terms of other local and state funds, PPHC staff will be including future funding sources, such as from Senate Bill 260, and additional local and state funding sources into the fiscally constrained project list under the pool named Alternate Modes Pooled Funds. Like the revised state estimates, the revised federal estimates were based on CDOT's program distribution document and the adopted 2045 plan reasonably expected federal funding pool, as well as an adjustment for inflation of 50%. Federal Transit Administration transit dollars are not included in CDOT's program distribution document, so they were added to the federal total. This additional funding source resulted in $462.035 million in federal funds. So to calculate the additional federal funds, the adopted 2045 plan federal funding pool of $313.035 million was subtracted by the federal fund total of $462.035 million. And this resulted in an initial revenue estimate of $149 million. With the adjustment for inflation of 50%, the federal increase came to $74.5 million. In terms of other federal funds, federal recovery or stimulus funding appropriated and distributed in 2020 and 2021 are not included in the revised financial plan, nor is the one-time infusion of capital included in the analysis of future funding. The presence, however, does negate the need to reduce or deflate estimates based on the pandemic. So given these revised financial estimates, the 2045 plan can accommodate the Colorado Springs project, as well as the other proposed projects requested during the call for amendments, and the plan will maintain fiscal constraint. Does anyone have any questions about the revenue estimates? Seeing none, I ask for your approval of the 2045 RTP amendment schedule and the revised financial plan estimates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
So this is Victoria. I will move approval on this item and congratulate Mark and John for the fiscal analysis that really made this process work for us. So good job on that. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
This is Brian. I'll second.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for the second. Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, as well, Victoria, I'm going to assume you're making a motion as described there in the proposed motion language. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mark.
This is Tim Roberts. I too would like to thank PPHCG staff for their work on this.
Okay, thank you everyone. That kind of wraps up our action items. We'll transition into more of our informational. And then we start off with our CDOT standing agenda item. I don't know who at CDOT would like to chat first.
Matt, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any new updates at this time.
Matt, okay. I have a quick question for you. I see that we got our federal stimulus project, you know, the first step of it's created. Will it cause any problems if we want to change the scope of the project? I mean, do we need to go back through and reapply type thing? What would happen if Manitou chooses to change the scope of that project?
That might be more of a Catherine question, or we have to wait till Michelle gets back to give you further guidance. I'm not sure what the process would be.
Hey, Dole, so is that the money that was came in December, late January?
Yes.
Remember, if it was a normal project, you had to follow all of the normal federal rules. If it was a stimulus thing where you're taking credit for like payroll and stuff like that, that was something brand new, more flexibility than we've seen, and that follows sort of a different rule. So if your project is a traditional project, offhand, I would say if you've submitted a scope and it's been approved by the feds and you make a change in that scope, you're going to have to do it just like any other sort of project. The funds don't change if you're doing something traditional. The funds only were different if you were doing something non-traditional. Is that making sense?
It does. Okay. So basically we would have, yeah.
Yeah. I don't work for CDOT. I'm pretty sure if you went a traditional route and you've actually identified a project and you've gone through that with the scope and the MOU and stuff like that, the feds, if just like any other federal money, if you say you're going to do something and they give you money for it, their expectation is that you're going to follow that scope. So if that's the case, again, I can't speak for CDOT, but I would be surprised if you could change the scope without going through that scope change process.
Well, let me add to that. You just received the information for that contract, but it doesn't have the scope written out yet, or has it written out?
I mean, it is for a specific project and description. Yeah.
Okay. And just
the project was built. Sorry, the project
go
was
ahead.
built off of the scope that he put on the application for the funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have not received anything further than that.
Yeah. Okay, so that answers my question.
So yeah, Catherine, did you have something? Because if FHWA hasn't approved it yet, you might have some wiggle room. Is that or no?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going with it, is that so far it's only been approved initially by the applications by CDOT, saying that, yeah, it's eligible for these funds. Matt did write up the contract or IGA with that scope, but I think there is some discretion for CDOT to change that if needed. I don't know that they're going to want to, but I'd say work with Michelle and Matt on that and see if it's possible if you really need to make that changes, since it hasn't gone through federal highway approval yet.
Okay. Okay, any other CDOT updates?
I have a couple of things from Kathleen, so she couldn't be here today. She wanted me to make sure that I made everybody aware of the fact that Aaron Willis has been promoted to the statewide and regional planning section manager job. Sorry, that's a mouthful. She also wanted me to make sure that I mentioned that Amber Blake has been selected as the Director of Transit and Rail. And we need to let you all know that we're in the process now, between now and probably the end of July would be my guess. We're in the process of transitioning back to working in person, and there's going to be some hybrid processes put in place with the greenhouse gas initiative, with the governor's initiative. So I'm not sure how many people will be working 5 days a week, or if somebody's still going to get to work from home. That's all yet to be determined. Let me see what else she has here. Oh, and the resiliency program that Lizzie Kemp is the lead on is now under the performance and asset management branch. I don't know if any of you are working with her on anything, but I wanted to make sure that you all knew that. And the TC met today, and there was discussion on the Senate Bill 260 funding. At this point, I don't know what the outcome of that was, because I was on the board meeting this morning. So I'm sure next month we'll have a complete report out on where things stand with that 260 process and where it's at. I know one of the things that we're really trying to figure out is how we're going to staff all the needs for that process to take place, with all the different bells and whistles in that bill. So more to come on that. But and then, just like I said, from the region perspective, we're in the process now of doing that hybrid process as well as headquarters. So we're looking forward to making in-person meetings with our next set of TPR meetings at the end of July, I believe, is when they're scheduled. So other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay. Catherine, let's transition into talking about the 22-25 tip draft document.
Yes, thanks, Dole. Okay, so this is an item you've seen a couple times. This is for adopting the fiscal year 22 through 25 tip update. It's not going to have the SDP Metro or the TAP funds in year 25 as we're doing that in the next full tip adoption. This one is the first of the 2 tips we're adopting in this upcoming year. So this is the draft that you have seen and you released to the public for their review. We had our 30-day public comment period and we held 2 virtual open houses. We did receive 2 comments via our online submission form on our website. And we had 2 people drop in, 1 person each in each of our online open houses. Let me see here. So a summary of the comments we received, a more detailed, a detailed version of that is in attachment 1, but we did receive the 2 online form submissions from the general public. The first one was more about editing errors and questions on how to access the appendices, which we replied to and said thanks for the help with our editing errors. And this is where the appendices were. And then the second one was requesting maps of the projects, which we showed them how to find that on our public website. And then asking why the projects in this plan did not match where the growth was happening in the city. And then suggesting that the plan linked to other jurisdictional plans. I did forward this comment to the Colorado Springs group for their official reply, since it did specifically call them out. And so I don't want to answer for you all. So I do make sure that these comments get forwarded to you if they are related to your projects. And Colorado Springs did reply. So I'll be forwarding that comment with response to them. They also did receive a more general response, thanking them for their input as well. The 2 attendees at the virtual open house were did not do any formal comments. They just kind of attended for general inquiry, and they were actually, I believe, both from a jurisdiction or an entity that had interest in the tip. And then we also received a submission letter from CDOT Region 2 requesting project updates to their surface treatment funding program in this current adoption. So they wanted us to make updates to the project costs there. And so we made those updates. And then also we added in a environmental justice analysis for this 22 through 25 tip update. And we did a more streamlined version due to the time constraints and needing to adopt this update as quickly as possible, but no new capacity projects were being added and no new regional SUV Metro or TAP projects were added. So this EJ analysis was essentially kind of a recap of what had already been done through the long range plan. And so we had added that into this plan, and no significant issues with proposed projects were found there. And that process is outlined in our in Title VI and environmental justice plans as well. So with that, I can so we're providing this for you, this draft for you this month with the updates, and then next month we'll be bringing it to you for recommended adoption from the board in August. And I can take any questions.
Okay. Catherine, thank you. And then it looks like, as normal, you have the next topic as well.
Yes, sorry. All right, Jessica, could I have the share screen access, please?
Go ahead and give it a try.
Perfect, thank you. Right, so just quickly, I'm not gonna belabor this too much, but we are needing to do an update for our PPACG CMP, or our congestion management plan. This is a or process, excuse me, it's not a plan, it's a process that you're supposed to include in your transportation planning processes, including the long range plan and the TIP. And so it's supposed to help relieve congestion in your region through identification of highly congested roadways or areas or corridors, however you choose to identify them, and then come up with a way of helping relieve that through project selection. Most of the time people come up with a congestion toolbox, which is what you all did when you first adopted this process some years back. The last CMP, we re-adopted the original one into the Moving Forward 2045. And so now we wanted to do a full review and discussion before for the next long range plan. So we wanted to get that started, also possibly approved before we go into the process of creating new or adjusting the scoring criteria that you all wanted to talk about again for the new long range plan. So some key elements to review or discuss would be the corridor classifications and thresholds that you all came up with previously. You identified through data analysis the strategic versus significant versus NHS corridors. So we want to see, do you want to update those thresholds, or do you just want to do redo the data analysis using those thresholds? How you want to handle that? Or do we keep the thresholds, redo the data analysis, that sort of thing? And then also, do we want to update the toolbox or strategies? There may be some that we want to add. It's a pretty comprehensive toolbox, so not much will probably need to be changed, but it's worth a look at that as well. And then also, as I mentioned, maybe updating the incorporation into the long range plan or the TIP scoring criteria, maybe utilize this to help identify regional priority lists, which have been mentioned and brought up recently, updating our regional priority lists. And then also possibly tie this congestion management process into the GHG requirements, or to help provide, kind of backup that we are thinking about this, we're utilizing our CMP, and we are incorporating this into our planning processes. So we are thinking about ways to manage congestion. So we already currently have connection to the long range plan through the goals, objectives, and performance measures that you all identified in the long range plan, particularly for mobility, connectivity, and economic vitality. And you did that through the performance measures, the targets you identified, and then just kind of the scoring criteria that you already used. So you didn't specifically say these congestion corridors will get you more points or that sort of thing, but you did incorporate like travel time index and that sort of thing into your processes. So you've already kind of done that as well, but we can take a look at if you want to change how that's incorporated. Just a quick idea of these are your corridors you identified, the significant versus the strategic. This might have changed over the years based on travel patterns. And those are below that, the tables are the thresholds that you use to identify those. Again, we can update those, or if you feel they're still very relevant to how you identified them originally, then we can keep them. So just a quick review of other MPOs, how they're using this. These are a lot of words, but I can pass this, I can forward this presentation along to you so you have more idea of how this works. So Dr. Cog actually kind of does a similar thing that we've done. They created their CMP process. They coordinated with their committees and incorporated into their scoring criteria process like you did, not necessarily through specific corridors, but through different ways of measuring congestion and identifying projects that help relieve those. And then also working closely on monitoring the TIP projects and how they help alleviate congestion. And so really doing that follow-up process afterwards. And they also closely tied it to air quality as well, since they are they are in air quality. What is that called, John? I can't think of it at the moment, but they have bad air quality.
Non-attainment.
Thank you. We're in attainment, so I forgot all about it.
Breathe not good so well.
Exactly. So this is just kind of the process that they used. It's a similar one that is really laid out by the feds to incorporate the CMP into the process, your planning process. And then just one other one is the North Front Range MPO. They do it slightly different, but also incorporated into their scoring criteria and just their overall planning processes in partnering with the Air Quality Council. They did it through corridor profiles and really analyzed in depth different corridors and did thorough analysis on specific areas to identify ways, problem areas, and then ways to alleviate that. So they tied specific strategies to specific corridors instead of just doing a large toolbox. There's no wrong way to do it. It's just different ways of doing it. So just want to give you an idea of how others might be doing it in case we want to go a slightly different route. So with that, I'll stop sharing. So this item is really just an information item. We're happy to discuss it now. I know there's a lot going on already, but we didn't want to push this process off too much longer because then we're moving into scoring criteria and other things, and we just don't want everything for the long range plan to build up. So any initial thoughts, questions, comments? Does anybody remember the last time we adopted this and feel strongly that it was a great process and that we should just kind of, keep it the same and maybe just update the data or anything like that?
Hey, this is Aaron Busto. Did you say what the time frame was for all of this to happen? I don't know if I missed that or you just didn't say it.
I did not say it, no. I was going to get a feel for the TAC on how they want to handle this, because that really depends on how long it's going to take. So if this is just going to be use the same thresholds, reanalyze the data, see if we get new corridors out of this, that's a rather short process. But if we want to relook at everything and how we're doing it, then that adds months onto this process. So that's why I didn't identify a time frame, because I wasn't sure how we wanted to go about it.
Okay, and I'll just throw out there that your federal certification review process is occurring now, so it's good to maybe collaborate through those mechanisms as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. That's a lot of information.
It is, yes. So
okay.
I guess we can, would it be helpful to send this in an email and maybe get responses back via a few questions in an email and sending this presentation through that?
I would say yes, since nobody answered your question, Catherine.
Okay, thanks, Brandy.
You're welcome.
And I think, Catherine, too, maybe, what's expected from the agencies? I mean, do we eventually need to just review and provide edit? Do we need to provide data? I just kind of be curious what will be expected from us as this thing becomes more of a action item.
Okay, yeah, and I guess I can just quickly say, we have Will and our GIS team to do the analysis. So we wouldn't expect you to, run the data or anything. And maybe a meeting or here or there to help kind of collaborate with any updates. If we're not doing a full redo, then it's really not going to be an extensive process on your part. But if you do want to get into more depth, then we would ask more input and from that. But I can put that in an email and see what kind of feedback we get.
I think that answers it. I just didn't know what will be needed from us going forward.
Hey, Dole, just so I understand your question, I think Catherine answered your question, but if you're talking about how it really works in practice, my understanding of a congestion management process, and I could be wrong, but I've picked up some things over the years from different places. And the intent when it was put in place by the feds was basically, hey, we don't want a jurisdiction, any jurisdiction, be it in Texas or Colorado or New York, for their very first gut reaction to be, well, we've got an issue, let's just widen the roads. We'll just keep on building and building, and we'll just keep widening and widening, we'll be good. So the Fed's intent, I think, here is they want to make sure you've gone through a deliberative process to make sure that you're looking at solutions beyond just the widening and using of asphalt. Did you look at transit solutions? Did you look at other sort of access control issues? Did you look at other ways of sort of tackling the bear, so to speak? I think I just made up my own little acronym. Anyway, so that's the intent. So from our perspective, yeah, we'll put together the process and we'll put together, help you with the data. But ultimately, you, the jurisdictions, have to be comfortable with what you've come up with. And it's not something you can, and again, I'm not trying to get all high and mighty or preach here, but you actually have to use it. You can't just have something you kind of run a project through, and then no matter what comes out the other end, you still will go ahead and widen the road anyway. If you put it through the process and the process kind of points you to having another solution, you got to be prepared to do that, because I think the feds, their intent is to have different thoughts and different solutions and not just go ahead and widen everything. So from that aspect, though, I think that's why you guys really have to be comfortable with what you're putting together. So that way, later on, it's not like, hey, yeah, we're fine with that. And then we run something through it and you're like, well, wait a minute, why do I have to do access control here? Why are you being mean to me, John? And I'm like, I'm not being mean to you. This is the process you guys all voted for and put in place. And so you can't get too upset with the outcomes of that process. So is that helpful, though? Like, kind of. Yeah,
it is. It helps me tackle the bear.
Yeah, you got to tackle that bear. You look it right in the eye. But again, it is one of those things. It's not something the feds want you to give lip service to. They want you to actually do it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you, Catherine and John. Will, are you prepared to handle the next topic there?
Yes, I am. All right. All right, following up on, I believe it was 2 TAC meetings ago, we had a demonstration from a software vendor called Streetlight. That was in response to our mutual desire between PPACG and the member governments to come up with an alternative method of potentially collecting traffic counts, or maybe looking at funding for acquiring traditional traffic counts. But either way, trying to come up with a system that's going to be more collaborative and inclusive of everybody that's within the MPO to be able to partner for this data that is pertinent to everybody's interests. And so looking at Streetlight, that was going to be an alternative method that not only gave us traffic counts, average ADT, but also the ability to do corridor analysis, trip analysis, OD analysis, and some other tools using live data. Along with that, we were exploring another opportunity that is very similar, and that is INRIX IQ trip analysis, very similar tools. And we have not had a demonstration of that, I believe, to any of the members of the TAC. It is something that Catherine and I checked out, and we had a demo. We can certainly schedule a demo for the TAC if interested, but we do have pricing and a breakdown of the pros and cons of these software solutions that we wanted to present, and then get some feedback from you all on how to proceed. So first off, keeping it simple, we do have the option of just acquiring a regional AADT file from INRIX. So similar to the location-based data or the live data that Streetlight and INRIX IQ collect, that is data that comes from people's cell phones, navigation systems in cars, as well as AVL monitors on commercial traffic. That is all compiled by INRIX and then put into one file for an entire year. And then that file can be purchased and downloaded. What you get with this file is effectively counts, which represent anywhere, they have a breakdown depending on whether or not it's urban or rural, but basically they're counting, anywhere from up to 60% of the traffic and some urban areas that you would expect to see on a road, and then they interpolate the rest. In rural areas, they're doing more interpolation based on census and some physical counters that they have set up, because there's fewer sources to ping. But either way, it's not a true count. It's interpolated data from those location-based services, but they compile all that together for the year. It covers what they call the XD network, which covers pretty much all the major roads, again, with all the urban areas. It does have some gaps out in rural El Paso County that I think El Paso County would probably like to have counts for, but it would not be included in that network. And this data is provided for $27,000. What we would do is, if this is the direction that we wanted to go, is the data comes as a CSV. We would break that data down and turn it into a spatial product, as well as the raw data from INREX. But we would put that into a spatial product so you can go ahead and get an idea. Again, think about clicking on a road center line and being able to pull that information up or do queries or put it in your own GIS. Our staff would be willing to go ahead and map that data and put that together with the raw Excel file or CSV, depending on how they deliver it to us. And then all the jurisdictions would have access to that, both the raw data and the GIS data that we create out of it. Any areas that are not part of that XD network would have to be counted separately through a separate contract. If we went with their trip analysis software, the software is a service that they offer, very similar to the streetlight demo that most of you saw. That's where you can see the real-time traffic volumes, but you can also go ahead and pull up historical volumes. You can break it down into like 15-minute increments. You can select a particular day. So if you had an event and you wanted to know how many people showed up, to a baseball game or a soccer game, or want to know how many people were potentially, traveling north to Denver on the weekend or to go check out a special event, you can select times and pull that historical data. Again, they're not counting every vehicle. It's, again, interpolated data based on the number of counts that they have, and then augmented based on their statistical analysis through census data and historical trends. But it does allow you to use a simple website, to use their web-based tools to pull that data, to run analysis, including OD, origin destination analysis, and we can load our TAZs. So from a planning perspective and from a model validation perspective, those tools are very powerful and really handy. So you can find an area like downtown. We can select the TAZ or the group of TAZs and then run an analysis for a given time of day or for the whole day. And you can see from how far away were people traveling, how long did it take them to get there, what were the routes that they took to get to that downtown TAZ. In addition, you can do coordinate analysis, which is something that we get frequent requests for. We can put a geofence up around an area like Monument, for example, and then we can run an analysis that on an average day, how many people start in Monument area or the Tri-Lakes area and then head north, basically cross that border to go north. And then how many people are coming into that area during the day to work. And again, you can run it for different times. So there's a lot of powerful tools that come with that, in addition to being able to just pull counts. For all data sets, it's $225,000 a year to access that and have access to the online tools and the software and all the data that INREX holds. There is no limit on the licenses or users. So if we went with this as an MPO, all the jurisdictions would be able to access this and run it, and training would be included. If we exclude their high frequency consumer car data, it would be about $157,000 a year. And then if we just were interested in only freight, because that's really what INREX really specializes in, is their AVL systems that pick up freight and commercial traffic, that's only $63,000 a year. But for all data sets, which is what I think most people would be interested in, you're looking at about $225,000 a year to purchase this. And then finally, Streetlight. Again, very similar system. I would say it's actually the easiest to use of the two online systems that we looked at between the INREX IQ and the Streetlight. The Streetlight's probably I found it to probably be the most intuitive and easiest to work through. Runs a lot of the same analysis options as INREX IQ. It's just a much cleaner format and easier to pick up on to run those different analysis options. The streetlight data, I think, has a better network coverage because they're purchasing the data from INREX as well as some other sources. I think that's why their network and their coverage is a little bit better. But for similar tools, what you're getting is if you wanted to have the advanced analytics that is consumer as well as commercial vehicles, again, that would probably be the package most everyone here would be interested in. That is $284,420 a year for streetlight. And again, to cover the MPO, no limit on users. So again, every jurisdiction could have their own access and login to run this analysis or these tools as they need for their planning purposes. And again, training is included. If we just wanted their essentials data breakdown, you wouldn't have the ability to distinguish passenger vehicles from, say, commercial vehicles. It would, again, just be all vehicles together, but we still have, again, the ability to pull counts. You just wouldn't be able to get quite as granular with it. It's 142,210, so it cuts it in half. But again, looking at probably how we would want to use this commercial traffic is pretty important, I think, for a lot of our planning purposes. $284,420 annually for the streetlight service. So again, we hosted a demo of streetlight. We would be happy to host another demo if anybody would like to see this again. We would be happy to host a demo of the INREX IQ suite, which is very similar to streetlight. If anybody would like to see that in action. From our perspective at PPACG, we think these tools are very valuable and actually could augment or do a lot of what we get right now from the state with the statewide travel survey, but in a much finer resolution, a much more granular detail with a lot more options for it, for analysis. So the ability to be able to, again, identify an area and then be able to query and say, where are those people coming from? Or let's look at a subdivision and say, where do they go for work? Is really, really powerful for our model validation and forecasting. And I think with some of the potential greenhouse gas rulemaking coming in and the ability to really run VMT and real time as well as historical trends and to do some simulation, which you can do with IQ and streetlight is again going to be an incredibly beneficial tool for some of the potential rulemaking that's coming out for the greenhouse gas and VMT reductions. So with that, we've already stepped forward and approached CDOT about this as potentially partnering with them because CDOT already has a license with INREX through RIDIS. They would actually get a discount on the prices that we were quoted from INREX for their IQ suite of software. I think it's only 10%, but again, that would have to go through the contracting of CDOT. So this is another, avenue that we are trying to explore, but we wanted to bring this to the committee as information and to let you know the information that we've acquired so far on these options.
So, Will, question. When you have the cost breakdown for the MPO area, is that just the MPO area? Because I know your model extends beyond the MPO.
Yeah, so the reality is we call it the MPO when we got the quotes from both INREX and streetlight to kind of keep it simple, but they did it based on population, and the population numbers we gave them included all of El Paso County. It just didn't include all of Teller County. It included Woodland Park being within the MPO. And when they break it down, it's not like you're gonna get your data and then where the MPO ends in El Paso County, that's it. You can't get traffic after that. It would extend probably beyond that just because our model does as well. And I believe that talking with them, we could probably get all of Teller County included as well in that price, really for the similar reason, because based on population, it doesn't really change their cost estimate to look at some of the rural areas of either El Paso County or in Teller County when the bulk of the population's in the MPO. I think that's something that we can work with them on.
That's great. I love these ideas. I thank you for looking at them. We are having a demo next week from Streetlight for DPW so that I can get some input from other staff people, but love these ideas. And if Streetlight's easier to use, I like that too. It would be interesting to know why Dr. Cog goes with INREX though.
I don't know why they do on the big scale, but I do know that again, CDOT purchases INREX for the whole state. So that might be where Dr. Cog's working from that existing contract.
Will, just in your opinion, because you know we were the first jurisdiction to apparently have a demo, and apparently we've kicked this whole thing off of PPACG, and so we're really excited about this since we are so tourism based. You know, basically where our tourists are coming from. You know, specifically to the incline and the COG and et cetera, et cetera. In your opinion, I mean, if John said, Will, make a decision right now, what would be your recommendation for our, you know, what would be the most valuable, what would give us the most usable functional data that could really help us understand, you know, that transportation network?
My opinion, if I had to choose between the two, is I would go with Streetlight.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so then this brings up the next thing. So what are we going to do with this? What is the plan? Will, I mean, you heard Victoria say they're having a demo too. Is PPACG going to ask the jurisdictions, should we do this? Does this need to be an action item? Do we need a budget for this in 2022? I mean, what is the next step with this?
Yeah, so it's not an action item right now. We just wanted to put the numbers out there to make sure the jurisdictions that you all in the committee had an idea of what we're looking at for costs. If anybody has 284 grand laying around that they're not using, you know, I'm sure everybody would welcome. You just wanted to throw that in for the benefit of the region. I've asked our people here, we don't have 284 grand laying around, unfortunately, at PPACG. And I think our best course of action right now is we'd like to get some more feedback from CDOT on what's feasible and partnering with them on something like this. Again, especially in terms of the GHG rulemaking, I think the tools that are available here are going to expedite and allow smaller staffs to potentially accomplish some of the requirements that maybe come down to us at the MPO level. Right now, trying to accomplish, again, potential rulemaking decisions that we're going to have to accommodate, just using our model isn't really feasible with the staff that we have. It takes too much time and too many resources to try and put all that together. But the ability to go ahead and say, let's just run VMT through this software as a service that's real time, to be able to go ahead and monitor changes and do other scenario plannings, that's something that we can probably train staff to use, potentially like an environmental planner on staff that we're budgeted for. You know, we're looking at other options. And so we're pitching this to CDOT and trying to see if we can't get a partnership going with them and what that might look like. And then when we have that more information, then certainly we'll bring it back to this committee and maybe have a better idea of how to proceed, where we've got another partner at the table when it comes to the cost and resources involved in acquiring this.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
And Bill, just real quick, Tim, to that end, again, if there's savings by having us all get together on things, that's what I think we're trying to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if we have 5 jurisdictions that sort of break open the piggy bank and go out and we buy 5 different licenses, and especially if we cross and get different companies, we're probably not optimizing our regional assets. If we can all come together, buy one for everybody, with everyone sort of chipping in, we can sort of get the most bang for our buck and we can get the best product. But again, like Will said, I think our very first thing is, because SB 260 has laid out all of these things, we're pressing CDOT to say, okay, well, right now, this is something you've said that we needed to do, and that is in the bill, that we need enhanced modeling and we need enhanced data. So this is how we could do that. Just like you buy NREX and give it to all the MPOs, we'd like you to buy this stuff and give it to all the MPOs, because no one can beat the price if it's CDOT that's paying for it. Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's, and piggybacking on your thoughts here, and Victoria also, the city is currently, streetlight data is being used for our citywide master plan, transportation master plan update. And we here in Public Works are looking at streetlight data to have also for our own internal use. So of course, you know, piggybacking could reduce costs, could expand capabilities and all that. So that's definitely would like to enter into that discussion too.
Yep, thanks, Tim. And that is our understanding, exactly like you said, is we're trying to come up with a solution where we can accommodate all the member governments that touch the MPO and come up with some way that everybody comes out ahead, as opposed to better off, trying to secure these services alone. And that way, again, everybody can benefit from it. So that's what we're looking at. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. And initially, obviously, this kicked off with just looking at trying to maybe contract counts throughout the region. But then, like Dole said, I don't remember exactly the expression. If you wrestled the bear, tackled the bear, threw the bear in the ring with us, I don't know. There's a bear at some point, according to John. And now that bear is, the idea of not just counts, but the ability to pull historical, actual travel time data and real-time travel data. And that is a really, really powerful tool that, with all the demos that we've seen, we've identified can be used in so many different ways, not just for, again, the GH, the greenhouse gas reduction planning, but also our model validation, like Dole was saying, to be able to kind of pull things for tourism and other events and be able to plan accordingly. We're thinking everything from emergency preparedness type use and resiliency type operations. There's a lot that can be done with this kind of data. And so that's certainly the road we'd like to go down, as opposed to just having historical traffic counts if possible. Anything else? Questions on this at all, guys? No? All right. Thank you very much. We will keep you informed of any new information that we find out. And of course, if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Catherine. We've both kind of been involved in this, and we'd be happy to provide any additional information that we can.
Thank you, Will.
And Dole, I think the only question I have left is, does anybody else think about Journey, Don't Stop Believing whenever we talk about streetlight, or is that just me? All right.
That's just you, John.
That song is going to be in our head now for the rest of the day. Okay, let's keep moving here. Any other member entity announcements for our meeting? Does anyone else have anything they want to offer or share?
I do, but I can wait until jurisdictions have their chance.
Hey, Dole, this is Brian. I'd just like to share a couple of comments real quick. We're about ready to start our public process for our fall service change. We'll be making a recorded video presentation live on Monday, and that will be available through June 30th. Funds for a lot of these new services were made available from the PPRTA's budget amendment that the board approved last month, as well as some ARPA funds. So what we're looking to do is put this money to use as quickly as we can. So a lot of the services that will be implemented this fall at the end of September will be services that don't require the purchase of new vehicles. So they're mostly going to be off-peak services. So we'll be trying to improve the on-time performance on Route 11, which goes from the downtown terminal to PPCC. And there's an awful lot of traffic congestion and frankly, just a lot of ridership activity on that section from the downtown terminal to Southgate Road. And it's impossible to keep those buses on time. So we're looking to improve weekend service on Route 11. We're also looking to add Sunday service to Route 22, which operates from the Citadel Mall Transfer Center out along Murray Boulevard, and then Route 23, which is along Tut Boulevard. That will have Sunday service as well. We're looking to enhance the Route 37 service that we just started last Sunday, which goes to the Peak Innovation Park where all the new Amazon facilities are, as well as the Colorado Springs Airport. So we'll be turning it into more of a full service route with ADA service, longer operating hours, many more trips, And, you know, currently right now it's just being operated as an express service, 6 or 7 round trips a day, pretty much catering to Amazon's shift changes. And then the final item is won't be implemented until late April or, you know, roughly Memorial Day next year, is a downtown shuttle to operate in downtown Colorado Springs, basically on Tejon Street, as far north as Cache La Poudre, where the new Colorado College Robeson Arena is, you know, soon to be fully constructed. We'll serve the Olympic and Paralympic Museum and the new Switchback Soccer Stadium, and that south part of downtown, that redeveloped area south of Cimarron. So again, very, very high frequencies, long operating hours, late evening, weekend service. And, you know, the idea is to kind of encourage folks visiting all of these attractions and restaurants and all the destinations downtown to park their car. We have an ample supply of parking in downtown, and, you know, really good wayfinding to lead these visitors from the parking garages to the route and all these destinations. So it's something we're really excited about. And yeah, as I mentioned, the presentation will go live on Monday, and people can review the video and comment. And you know, again, this will all be virtual. We've been really having good success with public outreach by doing it virtually. And so I think, you know, we'll have to think that going forward to at least have a virtual option available, but maybe, I don't know, eventually someday get back to in-person public meetings. So that's what I had. If anybody had any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but thank you.
Brian, this is Sally. Is your downtown route a trolley type design bus?
Well, that's a good question. You know, the plan that we did in 2019 really recommended, and a lot of the stakeholders recommended battery electric buses. And, you know, also the types of vehicles that we want there are going to be smaller, you know, maybe 30 feet, because they operate pretty well in a downtown environment. And a lot of the smaller battery electric buses just don't quite have the battery capacity and range now. And so to kick it off, we are going to start it with diesel buses, but tier 2 of the plan is to replace those diesel buses with battery electric buses. We just submitted, well, several weeks ago, we submitted a LONO grant application for battery electric buses, and we are hoping to be successful with that. And so if that's the case, we'll replace those diesel buses with the electric buses. But yeah, probably not a trolley concept, but certainly the vehicles will have unique branding. They'll be, you know, easily distinguished from our other buses operating in the downtown area. So it's kind of the marketing and branding piece that we really need to nail.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments, announcements?
This is Aaron Busto. Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So the president signed the new Juneteenth legislation this afternoon. So June 19th, henceforth, is a federal holiday. The government will be observing that tomorrow. So if it's on a Saturday, we observe it on a Friday. So we'll be off, as many other federal government agencies will be, and in the future, to consider that as a federal holiday, June 18th. Or sorry, 19th, June 19th. It's new, I'm still getting a hold of it.
Thank you, Aaron.
So
okay.
if I may just have
please.
A short comment, how much I appreciate PPACG and CDOT We are in our comprehensive plan update, and I have 8 subcommittees working on goals, objectives, and actions for the update of our comp plan. One of the subcommittees, Transportation and Drainage, met recently with PPACG and CDOT staff to get their heads around the future potential reliever route and de-evolution of Woodland Parks downtown. So I really want to thank staff for helping us keep our citizens well informed and hopefully not running down too many rabbit holes.
Okay. Any additional items that Catherine needs to know about for future TAC meetings? If so, send her an email.
And then, I have a couple things that you need to know, I guess, if you don't mind.
Please.
One's related to funding, so that's good news. The SB 260 bill was signed, I believe. John, correct me if I'm wrong. But it included some multimodal option funds, and that they have actually updated the name to be multimodal and mitigation option funds to include the mitigation piece for the air quality and ensuring that projects for air quality improvement are involved in those funds. We don't actually have a breakdown of how much funds PPACG will be getting for these, but they are for fiscal year 2022, which starts shortly. So we're hoping to hear back soon. I don't know if Wendy has heard anything yet, but we have not. But we wanted to make you aware that those funds will be coming, and maybe start thinking about projects, particularly in the mitigation realm, would be also a very good idea to have those in mind. And then the other item real quick is we have started doing hybrid meetings at PPACG. We didn't do it this month for TAC, but we wanted to see what the interest is in hybrid, or if TAC is interested in just staying virtually for now, or maybe, get your thoughts on that. I think it's up to you all on that particular meeting setting. And if we want to talk about it later, we can, but we just wanted to throw that out there that we have started doing hybrid meetings, and we are set up for that in our committee and boardrooms.
Hey, Catherine, this is Wendy. I asked that question as well about the MMOF funds and when we would reasonably expect to see some of that flowing to us. And they told me to quit putting the cart before the horse. The governor hadn't signed the bill yet. So I said, okay. And as far as your hybrid meeting this morning, I commend you because it was way better than the Transportation Commission meeting. So we should know something soon on the MMOF funds though. I've been bugging Michael Snow, so.
Thanks, Wendy. I know you were looking out for us.
According to my phone, the governor just signed the transportation bill, so it's a done deal.
Catherine, to your point, I think, because Manitou's dealing with this as well, but I think there are certain meetings that really work well with being, virtual. It allows people to attend that, we have people at Schriever Air Force Base or that are far away, but they can still go, they can still, they don't have to show up and sit and be there early and leave late and lose extra hours, and they can take care of things. So I suggest that we continue to meet in a very similar fashion as this in the near future, in the very, maybe not even the near future, for a while, unless someone really has a strong desire to have us all back in the same room.
I would concur with that. I appreciate not having to travel, so I prefer the Zoom meetings.
Well, and for our guests that hop on for a 10-minute presentation, they can hop on, do a 10-minute presentation, hop off, answer any questions, and they don't have to travel and wait their turn. And they can have us up, and they can be muted, and they can continue to work. And then when they hear their name come up, they can hop on. So it just seems to be really efficient a much more efficient use of everyone's time. So
I agree with you totally. And the one thing that's going to lead to is less of us in the office overall in the long run. So they won't need as many of us because we don't sit in a car anymore. Watch, mark my words.
This is how we're going to reduce congestion.
And we're going to reduce having to pay people by doing this. It'll help with the bottom line. They'll be able to put more into transportation on the road.
You're referring to CDOT specifically, huh?
Well, eventually that is going to happen, because if we don't have to spend time in the car, we're more efficient. And if we're more efficient, we can do more work.
That's right.
You can get more work out of a person that stays in one spot all day for 8 hours than you can a person that's in the car.
It's true.
So,
although you should be driving as much as you can, Wendy, that's job security.
I worry. Oh, I have job security. That's not a problem. That's not my big issue at this point. But the thing I worry about is what that's going to do to the folks. Will they run the old folks out like me, or will they push that? You know, I mean, will they make? I worry about what that means. That's all. I'm just worried.
Okay. Well, for the meantime, let's continue to meet virtually if that works for everyone else. And if you feel otherwise, message me maybe privately and we can discuss it. I know there's always benefit of being in person, but I just really tend to like this formatting for all the reasons I already said. So think of, go ahead.
We are set up for hybrid. So if some people do want to come in and some people don't, we definitely are set up for hybrid. Not that I'm pushing that, it's up to you, but just so you're aware, some people like Sally or whoever feels more comfortable just staying on Zoom will be perfectly able to if some people want to come in as well. So we do have that set up.
Yeah, Dole, there are times when different jurisdictions need to get together and meet. And sometimes it's convenient. They say, let's just meet right before or after TPC. So to that end, even if we stay remote, if there is a group of you that are meeting to talk about regional issues, we're happy to have that remote option open so you guys can have your meeting in the conference room. We turn on the cameras for the TPC meeting and you can attend via the hybrid, and then or do the meeting first and then you can have your meeting afterwards. We understand that we're a meeting place for some folks to come together in person for some stuff. So we're happy to do that. So if we are staying as a remote meeting, but there are a group of jurisdictions that want to meet, we can set up that hybrid option. We just need to know in advance to make sure that we have someone downstairs to operate all of the technical stuff.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
All right. Oh yeah, Brian.
So thank you for that, Catherine and John. That was going to be my question. If, you know, for those of us that are, you know, PPACG's neighbors and it's really close for us to get there, is that an option to attend in person? Because, you know, sometimes it's easier than in some ways, like what John mentioned, but I certainly understand for the folks traveling long distances, you know, doing meetings virtually for the past year has been amazing and very, very efficient. But I guess I just wanted to make sure that it's not an extra burden for staff to have the room set up for those who want to attend in person. And it sounds like it's not. So, okay.
Jess Bechtel, since you're the one that would be for.
So I think as long as we have a little bit of a heads up, we can even leave it virtual. And then if the day before, if people are like, oh, hey, we want to come in person, that way we can have staff on site, because it's a little bit more of a process, I guess, to have it going. But yeah, it's easy to pivot and say, hey, we're going to fire up the conference room today. That way we can handle it too. But yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, Brian, if the Thai place survived the pandemic, let's do the Thai place before the TAC meeting, and then we'll come back over here and we'll participate in the hybrid.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, lunches together would be great. Thank you all.
You miss our really good coffee, right?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay. Thank you everyone for good discussion. Great meeting. Let's adjourn this, and everyone have a good Thursday afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.